What up? What up? What up? It's the man Sean P coming in live. This is Sean P Experience on YouTube. I have an absolute very special show lined up for y'all tonight, man. I got my brother Maurice Carlos Ruffin right here in the building on the Sean P Experience, man, for the second time. He is a
Mm.
returning guest, right? Had him here on YouTube, on Instagram a while ago on Recast the Shadow. Got him right back with his brand new publication. It's not even out yet. Not even out there. The American Daughters, man. How you doing, my brother? Nice to have you here.
And look, you asking that question, bro. I'm on the Sean P Experience. You know I'm doing all right now. Thank you so much for having me again. This is a great honor.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let me get into your professional, official introduction first. I
All
got
right.
something after that for you, right? So, for those that don't know, it's important to know who you're talking to. We're going to the official introduction.
I'm gonna sip this water while you're doing that.
Yeah, you prefer. Enjoy your flowers. So Maurice Carlos Ruffin is the author of The Ones Who Don't Say They Love You, which is longlisted for the Story Prize and a finalist for the Ernest Gaines Awards for Literary Excellence. And We Cast a Shadow, which is a finalist for the Penn Faulkner Award and the Penn Open Book Award and the Dayton Literary Peace Prize, and was longlisted for the Center for Fiction's First Novel Prize and International Dublin Literary Award. He is a native of New Orleans, Louisiana. Stand up, South Side. He is a graduate of University of New Orleans Creative Writing Workshop and a professor of creative writing at the LSU Louisiana State University. We have Maurice Carlos Ruffin.
All right, thank you for that, bro. I feel very well honored now.
We're not worthy. We're not worthy. I want to ask on top of that to go together with that, right? I saw like yesterday or 2 days ago, your book being mentioned like the 13 books you got to read in February for the Times Magazine. Times. But you also mentioned in Essence Magazine, there are various major publications. You on the cover of different things and stuff like that. The question for the audience is, how does that feel? And before you answer the question, don't give us no presidential and all this humble. We need some bragging going on. We need some man. Look, we need some of that real from our show, right?
Well, I mean, I think okay, this is the real, right? This is how I really feel. As an artist, as a creative person, you have to love what you're making first and foremost. And so when I get to like the end, and I send it to my editor, I'm like, you did it. That right there is the cake. Everything else is the icing and the cherry on the cake. And so, you kind of expect that each book will be treated differently, like different children almost. But it has been very gratifying to see the response to this. I mean, I think it's got like 3-star reviews. It's got like 16 or 17 most anticipated book lists right now. It's got blurbs from Imani Perry and Brother K.S.A. Lehman and Lauren Wilkinson and other places like that. So it's just been, I'm just proud. I'm proud for the book. I'm proud for the book. That's how I put it.
Yeah, we need to hear that, man, because on my other podcast, the Griot podcast, we was talking to an audio narrator who nominated for all kind of stuff, and it's like, we need to hear y'all. We're human beings, bro. Like, we all get excited for our art. We put so much into it. Yes, I'm excited. Yeah, I'm pumped up. We don't want to hear that, oh, yeah, it's pretty cool to be nominated. Like, man, no.
But, Bright,
because it motivates other people. You motivate and inspire other people. You know what I'm saying?
The other part of it is, though, like, I mean, these characters, we'll get into it, I'm sure, but, like, these characters are very much based on the Black women who are my ancestors in the community. And so the energy that's in that book comes from them. And people are responding to that energy. Like, that's not like me, that's them. So it's all coming together, bro. And I feel very good about it.
Now, I want to go into actual, this is a story for your flowers, but it's actually a funny part to the story. I'm going to do it fast. So for those that don't know, I met Maurice in person at Baldwin and Company in October for the Jessamine Ward book signing, right?
That's right.
So
To bring in Jessamine.
My first time going to Baldwin in my life. I don't know what to expect. I don't know what to do. I get into the door, do my little check-in stuff, get my signed book and all that. The first person I see is Maurice. He said, oh, man, we got Sean P in the building. What?
Yo, I was waiting for you. I knew you was coming. I was like, where you at?
Oh, you did? Okay,
I knew you coming.
Okay, so Maurice says, come on, man. Come get a picture with me. That's what he said to me. I just read this man's stuff to y'all. You would think that I would tell him, man, come get a picture. He told me, come get a picture with me, right?
If you met yourself, you know what you're doing. You know what you're doing out here in this book review community, how important it is to bring these books to people's attention and have these discussions. You know who you are? You Sean P. That's real.
Hey, man. Hey,
It's your flowers right now, bro. That's what's happening.
man. See, I see what you did with that. I didn't know you were gonna do all that just now.
A little jujitsu, or what do they call it?
You did do a little misdirection, but you did that to me, and I'm like, wow, right? And then like behind you was Achilles, books of pop culture. Achilles said Jonathan. He said my whole name, my government name. That's rare. It's probably 5 people in my life that say the whole thing. My mama and my wife, not one of them. So man, Achilles said, Sean, come get a picture. And I went over there to the and then Kiese came late. But Kiese was like, oh, Sean Pete, like the respect and the honor and the vibe y'all gave me to say that we see y'all the way we see y'all. I want to know that's for the audience. Like Maurice is a real cool person. Like the book is good. Buy the book, get the book, put that to the side. Him as a man, him as a person, he's a real good.
Well, I appreciate that, man.
I want to always brag on that. I did whenever Kiese came in January. I did the same thing for him. Y'all are great people. We need more good people in the world, man.
You know what that is, though? I mean, like a little footnote. People know that I'm also a lawyer, and that community is not like this community. This community with people, you know, like Jessman and like Kiese and like Dr. Ibrahim X. Kende and like Sarah Broom. You know, this community it's intelligent, but it's also loving, and that's why I love being a part of it. So it really just comes down to that.
Yeah, and see, we were talking off camera right before showtime about Baldwin and Company specifically, but like the literary world, when you go to these events, besides meeting you people, you guys, and getting y'all book signed, the people you meeting around that. I'm in the line for the book to get signed. I'm in the line talking the whole time, all the way through to the top, Maurice. Different strangers, we exchanging information. I'm on Bookstagram, you on Instagram, and you read that book? Man, check out this book. We're strangers. But we all just vibing and clicking together. But I have a comedic moment for that night too, Maurice.
What happened?
You won't even remember this probably. So the guy that I went with, his name is Curtis. He's an amazing brother. Curtis is not really an avid reader. He's not really in the book world. He just came to check it out. So for the audience, Curtis walks up to Maurice. I'm standing right behind him. He said like this. And Maurice is there like he is well dressed, bow tie, the whole nine. At the whole building, Curtis walked up to this man and say, hey, who are you? I'm like, oh my God. Out of all the people in this building to ask that question, you asked this man at a book venue, who are you? It was crazy. But Maurice's answer was even better. It was amazing to watch. You could have easily like been on some like shining on somebody, kind of like imagine going to a park and Michael Jordan there sipping a little latte at the front. And the person tell Michael Jordan, man, who are you? That's what it was like.
What I said?
He was like, man, you know, I'm just a little, I'm a writer. You know, you said something real humble, real slick. Once again, jujitsu. You kind of like, and so I pull a homeboy to the side, right? Let me know who that is. What's wrong with you asking man that kind of question? You had just won the Louisiana Writer of the Year award, like the week before that or something like that. You know who that is? I felt like Pops on Friday. He said, get him off of that ground, messing with these people. Come on, boy. Talking about Fred, like, bro, you would tell Maurice Ruffin. But you made light of it. It was light. It was funny, but it also showed your humanity and humility and things like that, man. So,
man, look,
that's wonderful to watch once again.
That's us, though. That's us, and that's my folks. Look, my parents. You know, my father. You know, God bless him and rest his soul. I mean, they people. They love everybody so much. You know, and we all equals. We all have our role to play in the community, and so what I'm doing is my thing, and that's good. But that brother, I thought it was funny when he asked. I'm like, it's true. I am just a writer. That's what it comes down to.
I spent the whole 2.5 hours driving back home, like, bro, I can't believe it. But anyway, let's transition a little bit, right? So, I mentioned a funny story. I'm going through my little docket. So it is the first day of Black History Month.
Yep.
This is day one. The time that we come out, we pop out, we shine. Some people, Maurice, they feel like, why is it even important to have Black History Month in 2024? And I mean black and white people, not just white people. Yeah. Black and white folks are like, come on, man, we're doing this again. Why we keep on rehashing, bringing up who invented what and who created? Tell us the significance for you as a writer of something like this. What is the significance of Black History Month to Maurice?
I mean, look, for me, it's super simple. Look, there is no America without Black folks. And there are people to this day, Black and white, who might dispute that, which is unfortunate, right? And I mean, every single thing you could think about this country that makes us interesting, the music, the way that we dress, the food, everything comes to, back to the Black community, back to Africa. And, this book in large part comes out of this feeling of like, I know these stories were happening and they never ever get told. Like, even the fact that people want to talk about Harriet Tubman being a spy in the army, which is a real true fact. But nobody was talking about that, 10, 15 years ago, but it was a real thing, you know. And so my thing is very much that I look at like the sort of mainstream narrative, which is that, we supposed to be in this little box over here. And a lot of the amazing things that our ancestors did have been like not just like buried, but like suppressed. Like we're not going to tell this story on purpose. We're not going to put this in the schools. You just see the book bans. We're not going to put this in the libraries. We're not going to put this there and the other. So when somebody says, like, I get the perspective of like, it should be every month is Black History Month, which I think is true. For me, every month Black History Month. That's a true thing. But putting that extra spotlight on it, every extra spotlight we can do, I'm for the extra spotlight. Let's just keep putting up, lights over here, lights over there, as many lights as possible, fog lights, headlights, circling lights. It's all good for me.
Thank you very much for that, man. I appreciate that answer, man. So my next thing, Maurice, is for the audience. This is probably only my second time coming out like this on the show on Peter Theory. Now, I didn't know how Maurice was gonna come. When I saw him at ball, when I told you he had the bow tie, he was flexing. He was flexing. So I had a whole different outfit I bought for this show. And somebody this morning said, I don't know what Maurice gonna do. I gotta do something different. I gotta step out. Now, Maurice, you a detail man, I believe. Check out the tie, brother. If you can check out the tie.
Yo, that is slick.
On the tie.
Got that crosshatch action.
Now, for those that don't know, this is a half Windsor, not the whole, not a double, but a half. Look at the leg. Look at the leg.
Yeah. You're doing the whole thing, bro. I love it.
So my question is, on a serious tip, your fashion, you're known for your fashion and your style. I've been big on fashion the past year. There's a book that came out called Fashion Killers. Go out and get that book. I've been talking about it all year. Where did your sense of fashion and style come from? Who influenced that? Where did that come from? Were you always like that, or it's kind of more so the more recent part of Maurice being the author and stuff? Like, give us that part of you.
Yeah, look, it's my whole life. I mean, look, my mother, like way back in I don't want to date her too much, but like way back in like the 70s in New Orleans, this is back in the day when they would put like living women in the like shop window, like wearing dresses. She was a live model, so she would be like wearing the latest fashions on the main street in New Orleans.
Are you serious?
You never heard of that?
Yeah, a live person with the.
Absolutely.
I've never heard that.
Look, they will find some like attractive, 19, 22, somewhere in that range age, young woman, get some dress from Paris and have them in the window, kind of like posing like that and doing these kind of things. And so she was doing it. She was she was one of the Miss Ultra Sheens, like in 1972 in New Orleans. So she was always about the fashion. She like had the afro. She had like, everything going on. And then my dad, who was always involved in the car business, like selling cars and doing financing, I watched this man go to work like on a Saturday morning, like wearing a pair of fresh slacks and like a fresh iron shirt and just like, just looking sharp going out to work on a Saturday morning. And then also I'm a lawyer. So like the idea, I mean, I got, I don't know, probably a dozen suits. So I'm going to wear a suit if I feel like it. And then it's whatever like the mood fits. Fashion should be fun, should make you feel good. So I'm like, well, I'm in my spot right now. This is where I stay. So this is like a little sort of like classic, what they call like a little blazer kind of action happening right here. So I feel comfortable. I feel kind of sharp too at the same time.
Wait. Now come on now, Maurice. You ain't gonna say it like that.
What?
Because I have a black blazer that's similar to that. I call it the Black Panther. How that feel. Don't sleep on that blazer, people. And look at the pale detail. Come on, bro.
Well, it's that little smoking jacket style from back in the 50s or whatever. Yeah, it's that 1950s smoking jacket style.
I love it, man.
I see Ashley in the audience right there, Miss Wade. Yeah, that's right. Little razzle dazzle.
Dr. Wade. That's my. And she always stylish. Dr. Wade is always flashy with it, man. I want to know about you, Maurice, as a writer, right? You are a professor of creative writing. You deal with novice writers. Take us all the way back, if you can. When you first started saying, you know what, I'm gonna sit down and put something to writing and let people see it. Do you recall the emotions and maybe the anxiousness or the nerves around that? And when you finally released it for other people's eyes, like, how did you feel? Is the question.
Ooh. So you mean like sharing it for the first time with people?
Yeah, like you have private writing, but you finally say, you know what,
Yeah.
man, take this out.
Well,
That's
I mean,
courage to say, man, take this out. That's courage, like, man.
no, that's a great question. You know, nobody's ever asked that before. I don't think. I've done a lot of
Wow,
interviews over
I
the
want to know.
years. So
I love that. That nobody ever asked. I love the moments.
yeah, the way I think about it is, you know, writing is a solitary thing. You know, I got a little substack called Sitting in Silence. That's why I call it that. Because to be a writer, you got to sit and just be quiet for a minute. You know what I'm saying?
We gonna cover that. We cover that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, but for me, it's the sharing of the work that makes it real work. So I've been in several writing groups. There was a group called the Melanated Writers of New Orleans, you know, all people of color. And before that, my first group was called Podunk, the Podunk Writers Alliance. And there's like dozens of us in that group. But the point is, I remember like one of the very first times going to like one of our monthly meetings and we all reading our fresh work. And like I'm sitting like, you know, reading the page. I'm not very good at it yet because I'm still learning how you read out loud. And like hearing people like, you know, gasp or laugh or chuckle and kind of going, wait, like people are responding. I can have like an effect on people as I, you know, say this work out loud. And I think what happens is it really fills your heart up to know that you can have a positive effect on somebody, make somebody like have a good experience. Because writing is a lot of things. Writing is inspirational, it's entertainment, it can be helpful, it can be healing, it can give you insight into your life. So for me, it's everything. I'm not one of these writers can like write something and like go hide. I need to like be out there sharing it. I need to be traveling and seeing people and meeting people. Yeah, you know, the chat is bumping. I see this. All right, so we got what's that? Billy Edwards. We got who's that? Kofi. Kofi
That's
P.
my writing partner, Kobe P. Shade from Mississippi.
All right, what's up, Kofi? What's up, bro?
Kobe, yeah.
And Dr. Wade. All right, everybody out there having a good time. Good.
Yeah, squad up, man. Squad up to the chat. We all came for you, my brother. We all here for you.
But yeah, I mean, for me, you know, when it comes to sharing the work, is really everything. And even when I'm like writing something, I'm like in the drafting phase. I'm reading it out loud. I'm thinking about who am I talking to. Like often I'm talking to people that I love, like in my head. I'm like, how would they respond to this? You know, and you know they have their point of view, I have my point of view. Maybe it's like an argument, like, well, I think this, they think that, and that's part of loving somebody is to hear both sides. Or maybe it's more like just a fun time, like, yo, watch this, and I say this thing, I can hear them sort of laughing at that kind of thing too. So it's all connected.
You just said something that's important. Does that help your personal editing process whenever you're doing the allow thing? And I'm asking because I have an audio book for an example. I've done a bunch of sales in audio books. I'm blessed for that. A particular person that just bought the book Saturday, she told me last night, she said, well, Sean, I have tinnitus. So for me as a creative, I thought putting some little light music in the background of my voice would keep a person's attention. She said it was too much for her. I had
Oh,
never had that perspective in my until last night.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
All the folks that heard it gave me raving reviews. Oh man, it was so good. It was great. The music in the background. I never considered a person with tonight. I don't deal with that.
yeah, 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 yeah,
I
yeah.
could have never thought about that, making that. So like for you when you're writing, you're trying to imagine these different populations of people and respecting all demographics of like it's a real check and balance, kind of thing, man.
Well, I mean, you have to think about like, you know, who are you writing for? I mean, look, there's people right now watching Fox News who I'm not trying to impress. That's not part of my audience, you know. Um, and it's somebody I just started on the podcast too. And one of the decisions I made was like I have intro music and I have like outro music, but I only bring in music during the show, like at certain important points, so that I don't overwhelm people too much by it. So and I know a lot of podcasts like that, where it's like if something dramatic's happening, like the music kind of comes in the background, you kind of go, "Oh, that sounds really nice," and sort of drop out. But you know, it's just you can't please everybody. You try your best, and you see what's going to happen.
You really
Wait,
can't.
is that your mother?
She's in the book. Yeah. Mama V in the room. Mama V.
Hey, Sean P's mama, how you doing? Hope you're doing well today. Hope you're blessed. God
Yeah,
bless the
man.
mothers.
Man, God bless the mothers for real, man. For real. I asked that question to you because Maurice, we see you right now with the Time magazine and all this Essence magazine, everything. People see the pinnacle. They don't see the humble beginnings and when you're trying to struggle for your own confidence in your writing and
Yeah,
finding your own writing voice. They don't see that.
yeah,
So I love
yeah.
asking my writers questions like that. For anybody in the chat that want to be a writer or they are writing, to motivate and inspire the new generation of writers.
Well, the thing about it is, I mean, there's almost no such thing as overnight success. I mean, people can happen, it happens sometime, but anybody who has talent, I mean, even like a singer that gets discovered like in a mall or something like that, they've been singing since they was a little kid, probably. They've been putting in those hours constantly, constantly, constantly. So, quiet is kept. I mean, I've been a writer my whole life, like even like being like a teenager in high school, even like in like middle school, like having a teacher say, you have a gift, God gave you something special, right? But like in my adult years, it's been a good 20 years. I mean, this is 2024. I think I started my first book, We Cast a Shadow. Well, no, it would be like a predecessor to that. So I started my first book around 2004. And I wrote it and wrote it and wrote it. And, it's not published, but I don't regret it at all. I enjoyed the experience. I enjoyed becoming a writer,
These are the stories that we need. I hear a person like our good brother Robert Jones Jr., the last person I got like this for. He always stylish. But I heard him talk about having like so many renditions of the prophets. I mean, like he rewriting the full manuscript so many times before you finally see it, on the New York Times list or whatever. Like so many novice writers got to realize that time you got to put in for it to happen, man. Not no.
It's funny that you mentioned Brother Robert, because I mean he's one of my inspirations. He on many. First of all, like sartorially, that brother can dress his butt off. I ain't trying to match Brother Robert because he is as sharp as it comes. I mean, he got the razor blades.
There is no match for
that. And then like literally the same thing too. And I know that brother with the prophets, his wonderful book, The Prophets. I mean, I know he worked on that for a long, long, long time. And that's why it's so good, because he worked on it for a long time. But I think that's one of the things that makes writing interesting is that you can be in this space by yourself for a long time. But I think one of the things that being a faithful person is, like, I'm a Christian, is that it taught me you have to have faith. You have to acknowledge the gift, acknowledge people that help you get to where you are, and know that one day it's going to work out. And so the fact that this current book is having a good response, it's telling me that, okay, you put the hours in, you believed, and people believed in you. And I think one time on Twitter, old Twitter back in the day, I think one of my most popular tweets was, you're only able to write because somebody loved you. That's what it was. And I believe that. I believe that, writers, especially all artists, people are bringing us forward,
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So my next question, I just realized something a couple of days ago off of Instagram. Your book is coming out in February, Black History Month, right? There are so many amazing books being released in the month of February.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a good question. So in the old school hip hop days, because music come out anytime, now they got streaming, but like music came out on Tuesdays. So if your album came out on the same day as Jay-Z or Nas or whoever, it's like, oh my God. Like, it's kind of a thing. So in the writing world, are you even conscious of who else is dropping around your time? Do you even care about that? Or it's like, now the thing is all good, we ain't worried. How does that work in the writing world?
Well, I think that there are people that are much more into the business side of this than I am who know that. Like I know like my editor and like the publisher, they consider those kind of things. Me personally, I don't think about it at all. And like in hip hop, it's like, you got them moving off your release date. Like, if I'm coming out on February 27th, you better be moving to like the next week or something like that to watch out. You know what I'm saying? But I think when it comes down to it, like a lot of us writers, we kind of have like our own constituency. I think that people that like my books, they're going to show up no matter what's going to happen. And, I'm going to be on a book tour. There's going to be like reviews coming out. So they're going to find the book over a period of time. And I think about all the greats that I love, whether it's a Baldwin or a Morrison or a Ralph Ellison or Gwendolyn Brooks, Nick Giovanni, you name it. They're writing for the ages. They're writing for a book that some kid's going to pick up in 100 years and have an experience. That's how I came to literature. It was like finding books and being like, this was how many years ago? I mean, it feels like today in my heart, So,
Yeah,
so for me, it's like, I write my books. They come out when they come out, and then things happen.
I would say a publishing class, if you will, right? It's a wonderful class. I'm more than sure a lot of y'all gonna be nominated down the year for all kind of awards and MBAs and stuff. That's for a lot of y'all in this particular release class. It's bananas. It's crazy.
It's a tight year. It's a tight year. I mean, and
Keisha Blaine and Philip B. Williams, all these folks back to back.
Philip is somebody else who's very inspirational to me too, because I think I had already started writing this book, but I heard him read a part of his book like years ago.
Hmm?
And I was like, man, this brother bringing so much energy. I cannot come in half-ass at all. I got to come in like
No,
full throttle
no.
because I know Philip not gonna play around.
Mhm.
And the thing about it is that like this year, I think this is one of the best book years I've seen in a long time. There's so many books coming out. I
Yes.
mean, even like just in the past, like just this 2 months, you got Philip book coming out before my book come out. My dude, Kava Akbar got a book coming out called Martyr. No, it just came out like 2 weeks ago. I can name several other books, but my point is,
Yeah.
I'm happy to be a part of a healthy ecosystem. You know, I teach writing to college students typically, and sometimes high school students. And I always tell them, I always say, don't believe that myth that literature is dying off. That people don't want to like read books and be a part of this. There are more good books being produced now than probably ever in history, and I'm happy to be a part of that.
Yeah. And most of us avid readers, we're so addicted to books. We're
Mhm.
gonna buy a Philip book as we buy Maurice book together. We buying both
That's
of these
right.
books. It's not like, you know what, I got to between Maurice. No,
That's right. We,
I'm
we,
getting this
we
book.
can we can all eat. We can all have a
Yeah.
place, you know. Because
It's
I'm
gonna be,
gonna be a biggest fan of Phil's book. You know, it's my own book. I love his work because he's a
yeah.
fantastic author and poet. You know.
And the book community, back to the whole Jasmine Ward book signing for that wasn't your night.
Right.
What made it so cool? It was like, man, this is Jasmine Ward. She headlining, but you're there. Kiese's there. So and so there. So and so. I met some other writers. I'm sitting on side of in the audience. Like we're here together as a collective, supporting, raising up each other. And I'm more than sure whenever your night comes, it's gonna be the same thing, full circle, man. So I mean,
Well, you know, the thing
it's
about it,
a
like
wonderful time.
you know, Professor Ward is a good example of that. Jasmine Ward, you know, she's an inspiration to so many of us in the community because I remember a friend of mine, like around like 2011, said, you got to follow this lady on Twitter. I'm like, who? She's like, Jasmine Ward. So I'm like looking at her Twitter, and I think at that point, only her first book had come out, you know? And I remember like watching her, like, you know, tweet and like talk about her writing process and being like, man, she gonna do something. And like the next year, Savage the Bones came out. You know what I'm saying? And then like where the line, all these books coming out one after them. I'm like, I knew she was gonna be great. Met her in person a couple times, and so she's somebody who makes me think like there's the equality to it. We all start out somewhere, you know, and we can keep going up. When I meet new writers, I'm always like, nah, you're gonna do it. You're gonna make it. You just gotta keep on putting one step in front of the other foot.
Yes, sir. No doubt about it. Keep it moving. So I want to ask you before we get too deep. Give us an elevator pitch of the American Daughters, because for your particular show, this show, it was one of my more difficult ones to prep, only because the book is not out yet. I never want to spoil anybody's book. It's not what I'm here for. So if you give an elevator pitch, I know for a fact we're gonna land this plane perfectly. So give us an elevator pitch on the American Daughters, please.
Sure. So the American Daughters is about a young girl named Adi back in the 1840s who is brought with her mother to be enslaved to a man in the French Quarter. And after they get there, they realize that there's a spy ring of black women and girls who are working to sabotage the Confederates. And you know, this is a book about community, about friendship, about sisterhood, about
Yep.
mothers and daughters, about the city of New Orleans, and
Mm.
just this idea of like in the community, we never gonna lay down, you know. And to me, I think it's a very positive book because of that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well done. Well done. My book squad is in the building, man. Sarah, annotate with Sarah, my sister Billy Nicole.
Yo,
We all
Sarah be having like the little magnifying glass on the books. I love it.
give it to her. Give it to her. Give her them flowers. Give her them flowers. She needs them. Give her the flowers.
Every
Yeah,
time I see
man.
Sarah post, I'm like, this is gonna be some quality posting right here.
So first off the elevator pitch, tell us something about this cover of the book, right?
Yeah.
The cover of the book, I don't know, I don't want to spoil it, but like, could you give us some of the details in the cover, the
Yeah.
significance of what we're looking at with this imagery right here?
Oh, I would love to. I would love to.
Okay,
So it's not really a spoiler what I'm going to say, but so the
okay,
cover. First of all, what's cool to me is it's the often people ask about covers, and the author's like, I don't know, this gave me a cover, which is how it often is.
yes,
But I actually found that image myself. That's a real painting of a woman from I think like 1890 in like Maine.
that's real.
That's a real picture of like a free woman up north that this dude, his name was like Waterson or something like that, a watersmith. He was painting people in the community, and so he made this painting. And I'm like, I gotta use this for my book.
Ah,
Now there's some things in the cover I can't talk about because I don't want to spoil
yeah,
nothing, but there's things I
yeah,
can't talk about. And so because it happens very early in the book, I'm just gonna say it out loud. That tray she's carrying, those little decanters or whatever she got right there, that's full of poison. I mean, as you might imagine. So it's not really a spoiler because it's right there, like in the very first chapter.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Maurice. I would have never. See what I'm saying? It's cool. He said that's poison.
Yeah. So we got the birds. I don't want to get into the birds too much or the little banner and all that, but I will say
we're gonna glance over that. We're gonna glance.
Yeah. But the cover came out very well. I love the way it got an energy to it. You know.
It does. If you're in the airport, just walking through the airport, perusing around, it does jump off the shelf and makes you want to like, wow, you know, like it does grab the person's attention. The old school rule was you can't judge a book by the cover. You can't judge a book by the. What do you say about that as an author, about that old saying about the book and the cover?
I think it's like anything in life. It's both true sometimes and it's not true sometimes. I think that, especially in the modern system where the people who are in marketing make it a point to make a cover sort of fit a certain genre. So like, you know, if there's like two people kissing on the cover, it's going to be a romance. If there's like a very dark cover, like so that the gold leaf is like a fantasy book. So, you know, I would just say that, like, you know, I think my book, you know, if you like badass women doing cool stuff, you see the cover, you kind of go like, why is she like smirking like that? Why is she kind of looking off to the side like that? Something's happening in this book. And so, yeah.
Even your We Cast a Shadow cover was a conversation because it was like so many things speculating with this and that, and then you got the black and the white, and you got the face. It was so much. Do you get off on that as a writer? Do you kind of get off on that energy about the cover?
Well, I mean, look, as somebody who, you know, used to volunteer in the library as a high school student, you know, I fell in love with great covers on books. I'll be shelving books and kind of like, oh man, that's a great cover right there. And so for me, you know, of course, the writing and the story should be wonderful. But I also like the idea that somebody would be proud to have my book on their shelf or to have like my book on their coffee table and show it to their friends. I mean, even if it's like, you know, they don't even read, I'm like, well, at least they got a nice cover in their house, like a little piece of art, basically, you know?
Wow. Awesome. Keep it rolling, keep it moving. So you mentioned some amazing writers from the past a little while ago in your rundown. And Ann Petrie, we read The Street last month. Myself, Sarah, Billy, 5 stars. Should be talked about more. Should be more energy on that. Written back in like the 1941, something like that. Give us a little bit about her influence on your writing. You kind of give a nod to her more than one time in this particular book. Tell us about the importance of her for you and for us as readers.
Wow, y'all paying attention because even in the prologue, I call there's like this little house called Petrie House I put up there. You look at Miss Petrie. So
yes,
Ann Petrie was so far ahead of her time. I think she is the first African American to sell 1 million copies of a book.
I think I heard that.
You know, and so she's somebody up there in the Northeast, like around Connecticut and sometimes New York. And what I love about her work so much is that it's like it's so real, but it's so psychological, you know?
Yeah.
Like she gets so deep into the mentality of that main character and like the emotions. Man.
And see, I'm a psychology major. So of course I'm reading it from that lens, you know. You know, to a mechanic, everything is a nail, right? To the hammer, everything is a nail. So for me, I'm reading it and I'm seeing what she's doing with the inner dialogue, the internal dialogue. And so many times the character is saying something different than what they're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, all these things are happening. I'm like, bro, this book is just.
Yeah.
I should have read this a long time ago, man. I
Man,
want to
look,
read all of it.
And I got the version that has the forward. Did you get the latest copy of it or like one of the older copies of it?
I had an older copy. It's older.
Yeah, I think the latest version had a forward by Tiari.
I think I heard that.
It's this wonderful. So she gave me like a sort of compass for like how to read the book. And my point is like, so I'm overeducated. I got a master's degree in psychology, so I got that too. And I've always loved psychology in a book. That's why, like, when We Cast a Shadow, for example, like the dude's always thinking so much. And in this new book, you know, Adi is like trying to work things out in her mind, like sort of like do the calculations. But just that whole like legacy of different writers throughout history. I mean, even like back to like Nathaniel Hawthorne and like the Scarlet Letter. You know, he's somebody who was very much like, I'm gonna tell you how they're feeling as much as possible because that's gonna help you understand what these people are going through. And I just love doing that in my own work. And Ann Petrie, I mean, my goodness, you know, I wish that she had like 1,000 books.
So let's go to the title, The American Daughters. Now, whenever I see The American Daughters, of course, me reading history a lot myself, I'm thinking about like the Daughters of the Confederacy, I believe it's called, and
Yeah,
there's other daughter groups in
yeah.
the past. Tell us the American Daughters for you in this story. What's that about?
Well, we were talking earlier about the contribution of Black folks to this country, and I mean, I don't try to be like political in the sense of like, punching the point home over and over again, but we have to acknowledge our contributions to this country. The whole nation needs to acknowledge that. So, like, my dad was in the military. My dad was an army guy, right? And so, my mother would always put like a little red, white, and blue bow on the door, 4th of July. I'm like, Mom, why are you doing that? And she's like, because your dad fought for this country. And he went over to Germany during Vietnam, is like running tanks and stuff like that and training people up, that kind of stuff. And so I think with the American Daughters, like, I wasn't really thinking about like the Daughters of the American Revolution that much, even though I've like seen them in action, like what they do. But I will say that the idea that the only daughters of America would have to be white is just ridiculous. Because the whole point of America is that it's a pluralistic society. And especially the fact that, I mean, I think at one point in the book, Adi or somebody says like, this country was built on the haunches of girls like her. She's working and fighting constantly just to make things like to make this country what it is. And so I'm like, you know what? There's that whole conversation about like, how can you recognize the Confederate flag when they were traitors? Well, okay, yes. So therefore, which American daughters are working for freedom? Which American daughters are working for self-determination? We're working for a society in which we all have the right to be our best selves. That's my American daughters. That's Adi, and that's Lenore, and that's Alabama, and that's Sanit, and the rest of them running around doing their thing. So that's why I give that title to it.
I have a question for you, Maurice. So,
Yeah.
coincidentally, very coincidentally, all this Megan Thee Stallion stuff going on in the media right now, her and Nicki Minaj and all that.
Yeah.
In your book, you have 3 quotes. Within the books, Asada Shakur, Megan Thee Stallion. Give us the significance of these 3 pieces and why these pieces particular. What are you conveying to the audience with these?
Well, I think that few people are as good about talking about the sweetness of freedom than Black women. I mean, so many poets and activists throughout history. So when I was like, how do I want to start this book off? I'm like, I got to go to some of these sisters out there and see what they're saying about it. And the three pieces in the 3 epigraphs are. Well, yeah, I got it right here. Let me pull it up so I can go through it like that.
Yes, sir.
Instead of trying to guess my own work. So with Miss Brooks, Gwendolyn Brooks, we got "We Are Each Other's Magnitude and Bond," And with Asada Shakur, we got "Love is Contraband in Hell," because love is an acid that eats away bars.
Bars, yes.
And then Megan Thee Stallion, we got "Once You Really Know Yourself, Can Nobody Tell You Nothing About You." And so, I mean, for me, it's self-explanatory, but at the same time, if you pay close attention, it's almost as if that's the plot of the book. Like you sort of like follow 1, 2, 3. It's almost like act 1, 2, and 3 of the book.
Wow. Maurice. Now, Maurice, I read this book twice. I did not see that. This is why these shows are important. Now, more than so, when the book finally come out, the people gonna be like, "Oh man, let me go in." See, and now look, see, yeah.
I mean, look, I come from the school of like, of course, I've already said Toni Morrison, but also like Nabokov, who wrote Lolita, where like they're putting Easter eggs on every single page on purpose, so that the closer you look, it's like having like a microscope. The closer you look, the more you're gonna find. That's where I try and write my books.
Yes. Okay, that pairs good with the next question. So this book is heavy on the New Orleans.
Yeah.
New Orleans, Louisiana. Your name dropping a lot of locations and people, significant places. My first thing is me being a guy from here, born and raised, seeing it. I'm getting excited. I'm circling things. But I'm thinking like, wait a minute. You have an international audience at this point. Do you think that they're going to catch some of these things? Like, do you even care about that, or do you like if you get it, you get it. If you don't get it, I'm not worried about it. How do you go about that?
I think it's a little bit of both. I'm somebody who's spent a lot of time actually reading like Greek literature and reading like Phyllis Wheatley poetry and that kind of stuff. Yes, and I think to a certain extent, good work is kind of self-explanatory. But if the work has an impact on the culture, people will go back and they will explain some of those things for you. So I can see somebody reading this book in 20 years and like doing like a dissertation like for school on it and saying, you know, when Maurice starts off with this very first sentence about, you know, men being like these, you know, these crazy wolves or like that, like this is what he's doing. And for international readers, I think that being from Louisiana, being from New Orleans, you know, New Orleans is an international city. Everybody knows about New Orleans. So there's an innate interest that's there already. And the fact of the matter is, like, when I'm describing like the French Quarter and like how those buildings look, it's the exact same buildings that are there, right? Exactly. It's the same, it's the same grid, it's the same buildings. So if you're really confused by it, just go visit the French Quarter and be like, oh, like, you know, the cathedral is still sitting right there in the center of the entire city. You know, the river's still right there in the same spot. So it's all right there.
Yes. Now, Maurice, give the audience, the national audience, Congo Square. I love the part about Congo Square. For different other reasons, I've read about Congo Square a lot historically.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about the significance of Congo Square historically. And I got something for you. Kind of, I might be reaching on this one, but the Saints at the Superdome, isn't it called Champion Square right there?
Yes, it is.
Is that like a correlation? Is that like irrelevant? Is that like chance? It's called Champion Square.
That's a good question. Oh yeah, and shout out to Dr. Wade in the book clubs. We love book clubs. We love book clubs.
There it is, Doc.
Let me think about that.
Champion Square. I thought about it last night. Like, man.
Yeah.
Are they playing up Congo Square?
You know, this is what I think. Oh, and on the book club thing, I always love book clubs. Sometimes I'll zoom into book clubs or I'll go to book clubs, stuff like that, because it's always just fun to hear the discussion. But
hey, Dr. Wade, give my man the invite to the book club, Dr. Wade.
but so I don't think Champion Square is related. I feel like that's something that was more like a corporate thing from the Saints. You know, no shade to them. I know with Congo Square, it's interesting because Congo Square became what it became because they wouldn't allow Black folks to get together in other contexts. But then I did a lot of research on it, and it's so deep. I'm trying, like, I read so many books about, say, so my book is mostly set 1840 to like 1862, somewhere around that range.
Yes, sir.
But I did some other research that told me two things I never knew about in the past. Number one, Congo Square name changed several times. So
really?
It's Congo Square, and a lot of the African descendant people are going there to like get together and like sell their goods and dance and party and just have a good time and pray and that kind of stuff, right? Then at one point, when the kind of conservatives took over, they were like, we're going to make it for everybody. And they changed it to like some German dude's name, like, you know, Gesselheim Square, something like that. Yes, and that's like 20 years. And then they got pushed back to Congo Square. But way before my book, like I say in the 1700s, when you had the first people in New Orleans, you know, the city of New Orleans, you had, I mean, how to put this for like I'll sound too crazy. You had so many people of African descent in New Orleans that the ruling class, like the sort of French white dudes, they couldn't control the people that was there. So you had like brothers on like both sides of the river, like, you know, doing business. You had some dudes like stealing from the white guys, like stealing like their jewelry and like stealing like their money. Okay. And so that was part of the whole process. We got to like put them in one part of town. We can't have them like surrounding us like that. So like this really complicated history that's just really funny to me because I'm like, wait, they were so free in like the 1700s that they was just like doing their own thing for like 80 years basically. It's like, yes, they were.
No, okay. See, I love a show whenever the questions kind of go naturally to the next question because I wanted to ask you about the Mockingbird Inn, for an example, right? Yeah. And we're going to speak conceptually about stuff, not in detail, I won't fall, but conceptually. The Mockingbird Inn in the book. Tell the audience about the amount of Black women you had around the nation that had thriving businesses around this time period. They had hotels, speakeasies, brothels. Right. They had all kind of businesses. They're making their own money. And this is more prevalent because, like the movie The Harder They Fall that came out about a year or two ago, and you had Regina King, she had her establishment. Me and one of my older friends here in the 60s, we were debating about it because he felt like, man, come on, Sean. They have no Black people in the West had a place like that. They got chandeliers and whatnot. I'm like, bro, like we had thriving things popping back in the day. Like that's a real thing, man.
Yeah. I mean, look, that's
history, bro.
And that's what representation is all about because, you know, unfortunately, what's happened is that there have been so many depictions of quote unquote slave times, which itself has its own problems with it. So people are like, all right, if you're black in 1850, then you're probably in some field somewhere, wearing like, a cotton dress and sweating your head off and that kind of thing. But it's like, well, no, 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 no. I mean, let me tell you how deep it is. All right. Now, New Orleans especially is a place where, let's say like in 1820 or so, it was about a third white people. There's like a third enslaved black people, then a third free black people. So it was majority black city at that time. And those free black people had probably 100 years of experience of like owning their own business, having their own property, traveling abroad. There's a little line in there somewhere where I think Lenore's dad, talk about like going to Europe. That's a real thing. Then across the whole country, from Baltimore out to California, you had, we had like our own banks, our own inns, that kind of stuff. And look, it gets even deeper than that because I've done a lot of research. So I've been to Holland, to Amsterdam twice, where the Dutch folks at, right? Okay. And there's this famous painter, we all heard his name, Rembrandt.
Yep, Rembrandt.
Look up Rembrandt black people, or Rembrandt Africans, right? Okay. In one of his paintings, Rembrandt, I forget the exact year. Let's say he's like painting around like 1510, long time ago. One of his paintings, he got these two brothers just kind of like hanging out, looking kind of like we look, kind of like, they got some style, right? And I asked one of these tour guides, like, what is this? Like, why do you have some black dudes in this Amsterdam painting from 1510? And they were like, oh, well, because at that time you had a lot of black visitors and people living in the neighborhood. Like, they were not enslaved. They were not like working for the military. They just lived in the neighborhood. So Rembrandt is this artist like painting dudes in this neighborhood. So that tells you how much people, again, that's how much culture suppressed. They don't want you to know all these things because they don't want you to think that we had freedom in all these different contexts,
The book called Black Fortunes is a nonfiction book, by the way. The sister named Mary Ellen Pleasant out there in San Francisco.
I know about her.
A big old establishment, man. And she was getting a lot of money. And she was even like investing in other people's things to get the flip back and get more. She was doing a whole lot.
Let me tell you something.
The character reminded me of that when I read the character.
I might be related to Mary Pleasant.
Wait a minute, what?
I ain't proved it yet, but I've been like doing my genealogy and it gets kind of murky at a certain point. But there's a bunch of Ruffins and Pleasants who have a connection, even to the point. I teach at LSU, right?
Yes, sir.
LSU's one of the buildings is called Ruffin G. Pleasant Hall.
Man, get out of my face, bro.
So something happening, bro. I ain't figured it out. I'm still working on the connections, but there's something happening there for real.
Hey, we got to call Henry Louis Gates, man. We need Professor Gates on this.
Bro, where you at, Professor? Help me out.
Come on now. You got enough clout at this point. Say, look, I'm in the Essence magazine, but the Gates. I am somebody. Now it's time for the flex, You got to pull that card sometime, Maurice. Time magazine, man of the year. But no, I would have wanted to highlight that the character like her in the book is not a real exaggeration. Like, they had people like this, and they had education. They were smart. Business, right?
Yeah.
We got to highlight and note that, because back to why Black History Month, people keep on saying, why all these movies about slavery? Why all these books about the Civil War? Why Will Smith doing the emancipation? Because so many people still don't know. Right. We know. It's elementary to us. The Barracoon book.
Right.
The man asked that ballroom company, how many of y'all went to Africa Town? It's 2 hours away from New Orleans. The whole crowd like this.
Woo!
They never heard about it. It's 2 hours away.
Yeah.
The whole crowd is sitting like this. No hand raised. Like, we need these stories, man. This is important work to be done.
That's right.
We're not above this.
Yes.
Yeah, man. Going to the next one. So I love asking about the research process, my brother. I love it. My favorite question on the show is always, tell us about the research. Going into the archives, going into the documents. You did a lot with this book. And in fact, without being a spoiler, the book is kind of sort of written like a person finding documents and finding archives. It's kind of a part of the story, right? So tell us about you in the archives and you digging in and searching. What was that like?
That's a wonderful question. Thanks for asking it.
Thank you.
I mean, first, it's the research of my life. It's what my parents and my grandmother taught me about, like, our history. I went to a school in New Orleans called McDonald 35, a very sort of radical, like, pro-Black school. So the teachers, they was on it. Oh, yeah, man. Man, look, McDonald 35, it's going to come up in my next book that I'm working on. But They were founded
What?
around. Look at you.
Huh? What? Did I just
um,
messing with you. Go ahead.
but I mean, look, my school, my high school now was over 110 years old, and they were always like talking about our history and like the pride of like what people have accomplished. And initially, it was a normal school, so it was a school for teachers. Like if you were a 17-year-old person, they want to teach you how to teach other people in the community, so you can spread that
Wow.
knowledge well, right? But then,
Wow.
like for this
Mm,
specific book, I can honestly say that I started researching this book 20 years ago. It was 2004 when I started,
20 years
and
ago.
I remember very specifically, I was practicing law downtown, and during my lunch break, I just kind of got bored, and I went down to the French Quarter where they have these different sort of archives and stuff. This one was called the Williams Research Center, and not even looking for anything. I was like just like going to dig through the crates, like what's in here? This beautiful little library space, and I came across this article talking about how the Confederates did not really fight when the Union showed up, and I was like, what? What you mean? These racist, capitalist, anti-human people, they didn't fight when the freedom fighters came. And so they got in my head. I kept thinking, all right, why would they not fight? Why would they not fight? And there wasn't a good answer in the record. And then one day, years later, I'm like, well, if my mama and my grandma and my great aunt was in this community at the time, they're gonna be sabotaging these dudes every which way possible to where it gets so bad that when the Union show up, they like, please save us. We're getting killed here. Please, no more, no more. That kind of thing. So that's where like the sort of research and the reality came together in the book.
Wow. Wow. So I love asking the follow up to that research question because I know you can get bogged down in research and not really the writing.
Yeah.
When do you know, okay, I have enough things compiled. It's time to start actually writing, Sean. Get out the archives. Time. You're a writer. You're not an archivist. How do you know when to stop? I know you got to be a hard thing to stop. There's
Well,
always so much more to dig up.
it's definitely the case that for a lot of writers, a lot of unpublished writers, the research can get in the way of the writing. And you have to acknowledge that and you have to change your approach. There have been so many writers who I respect. I know Edward P. Jones has said this, as well as Toni Morrison has said this, and maybe Charles Johnson who did Middle Passage. They said it wasn't like for Beloved or for the known world, it wasn't about doing a lot of research. It's more about a vibe. So Edward P. Jones, like maybe he's like it's a little cap, but he's like, I didn't research that book at all. I'm like, okay, how's that possible? The book is set in 1844, Baltimore, something like that. But I know what they're saying though, because what happened with this is what I did for my book when I was getting ready to start writing this book in 2020, and this is during the pandemic. I got on Facebook, and this you can see this on my Facebook post to this day. I said, hey everybody out there, I'm writing a new book. Give me any recommendations for historical New Orleans books. And I got a lot of recommendations online. And one of my friends, I give her a shout out. She's a bookseller up in, I think, New Hampshire or Maine. Veronica Brooks sent me a box of 17 books, right? These historical, I started going through there. And I didn't read like every single book, every single page. But in about 3 of those books in the first 50 pages, I was like, wait, there was a black lady in like 1820 that was so rich. She built her own school for kids. What? This is a real lady, right? So like there's little bits of information, like was like seeding my imagination. And like, well, how can I use this? How can I use this? And then, and I'm like, all right, I got enough information right now. Let's just start writing, see where it goes. And about a month or two later, I'm like, I was ready to go. I was just off to the races, And I go back later on and sort of fill in information that's been, sort of fuzzy up to that point.
So Maurice, there's always the cutting room floor. Everything can't make the movie. Everything can't make the book. What's something that you wish, like, man, I wish I could have kept that in there, but the editor thought somebody it didn't fit. What's a piece that's on the floor that we don't have in here?
You are definitely the first person to ask that question. You should be a reporter, investigative journalist. That's a good question.
Y'all hear what it is? Y'all hear what it is?
Nah.
I didn't say it.
So, yeah, I've never said this out loud. So I had been reading Alex Haley's Roots because I had seen the series, but I never actually read the book. And if y'all read it, it starts off like way back in Africa, like in 16 whatever, and I had seen some movies like that. And so in this book, I had started off with like the main character's ancestor back in Africa. And I wrote a couple of scenes where it's like, 1650 or something like that.
Maurice,
And they back. Yeah. And I was like,
Are we
and
gonna
I was
are we
like,
gonna get a prequel? Are we gonna have a prequel?
I mean, it's probably look. I never say never. It can happen.
Little novella, little ebook, little.
But I
I
say
know
for this
Desmond
book,
Ward did that. When her books, Desmond Ward did something like that.
oh yeah,
Uh,
she did
the
that.
Letters Descend, they got books that predate Letters Descend, and you read
Yeah.
them, it all makes sense. Like, oh,
And that's the kind of thing where, like, I think for a lot of us writers, we probably, I mean, I know that for each book I've written, I have hundreds of pages of material that's not in the book. That's just part of my process.
don't throw nothing away. They say, don't throw nothing away.
That's
Don't
right.
throw
That's
it
right.
away. Everything could be used, right? I appreciate that, man. Let me keep it rolling, keep it moving. Here we go. This is a piece from the squad, right? So in the book, I'm not spoiling. Whenever they leave, Eddie and her mother, they had a little bag of necessities and things like that. There's some stones, I believe, in the bag. Are there any kind of significance to these stones at all, or is it something you put in there in passing? Because I know in some cultures these stones and rocks have significance, or it's spiritual, or it might be something else. And the next thing was the pen that Lenore uses seemed to be significant, important. Did you research different kind of pens and brands and styles, or are
Yeah.
those two items not important at all?
Almost everything is significant. The stones, I don't want to spoil too much, but I'm going to tell you right now, them stones come back actually in a later book that I'm working on.
This man just said the stones come back. Maurice, this
uh,
man just said the stones come back, bro.
You
Oh,
know what? This is a real thing. I never told anybody this before, but like one of my
okay.
favorite writers is this. He's the man that wrote the X-Men back in the 70s and 80s. His name is Chris Claremont. Yeah. And he would do this thing like he would like put a detail like in 1979 and come back to like 7 years later. And he'd be like, "What? No, it's impossible." I just love that kind of stuff. It gets me hype. It gets me hype.
You know who was good for doing that too? Rest in peace. The writer Eric Jerome Dickey, one of my favorite fictional writers ever, right?
Yeah.
If you're not paying attention, he would have a main character from a different book have a cameo in like this other book.
Oh
Might
yeah.
be a taxi cab driver, or it might be just passing in the ball. Like, wait a minute, it's so and so.
Yeah.
If you're not really an Eric Jerome Dickey like a diehard fan, you probably wouldn't be checking it, right? You got to be on the game. You know what I'm saying?
It's just fun stuff. And then that pen, the pen is interesting because I
Yeah,
think with the pen, it's more pragmatic. I just was trying to figure out like what kind of pens were available at that time and what kind of pen would Lenore use specifically. And without spoiling too much, I think I mentioned it a few times, even after something crazy happens in the community, you're like, wait, the pen is still around, so it's that kind of a thing.
The pen, right? So you mentioned the school you went to, and the school was used to educate other educators. Let's do a play on the early education, right? Because I love reading books about 1800s, early 1900s, and the creativity of people to get education. There was so much clamoring for education, and they were just finding unique ways to ear hustle somebody else is getting a lesson, and they find little pamphlets and things on the ground to collect and go back at night with the little lantern, teach themselves how to read. All these things are amazing to me. Even sometimes a slave master might take and educate a person on purpose for a particular reason, but they go back to the community with that and do different things, right? So talk about that. I mean, I'm curious about that process. I love that.
Well, I had the pleasure of finally getting to go to the motherland last year. I went to Senegal over in Africa, and I was there for the whole month of August.
You spent a month?
I spent a month, bro. Life changing. I mean, it sounds cliche, but it was literally life changing. And it reminded me of things I knew were true, but it just put a stamp on it. It's like this thirst for knowledge, this love of community, this love of art, the purity of the food. All these things were just like popping constantly. And when it comes to educational piece, look, my grandmother taught English, for most of her life. She taught special education.
Cool.
Yeah.
40 year educator, man.
And so much of my love of writing comes from like my mother bringing me to the bookstore and my grandmother bringing me to the bookstore and just being like, buy whatever you want to buy, kid. Just read them books. We want to feed your brain as much as possible. And for me to learn, relatively recently that almost all of the early schools in New Orleans because first of all, there were no public schools for Black people in New Orleans until like 1913 or 1918, literally. literally. There were a couple of private schools like that lady opened in 18 something, but then they tried to outlaw those too, and then they made it illegal to teach enslaved people how to read. But just fighting so hard against people learning,
It's
and yet
relatively recent, man.
it's cruel, and yet people have always fought for that knowledge, and I love that
We
so much.
we don't acknowledge enough how recent that we all been legally reading and writing. To say we some of the best writers in the world,
Yep.
some of the best artists in the world, hip
Oh
hop.
yeah.
Dealing with words, we're some of the best. To say that we just
Yeah.
started kind of sort of doing this thing.
That's right. That's right.
That's crazy, man. It's crazy. But yeah, that early education piece, because now we got all this technology, right? You can Google anything, pull it up, and people seem so lackadaisical about about reading, about learning, about
And can I tell you this? I know I've said this before, but one of the main reasons I write is because I want to be the kind of writer that inspires young people to write their own stuff. Like if they want to write, I want them to be like, if he could do it, I could do it. He's okay. I'd be better than that kind of thing. But then even on top of that, like one of the other reasons why I wrote this book, how I wrote it, is I know that there are a lot of young people in the community who will be like, oh Lord, another slave book. I don't want to be, they don't just be depressed. You know what I'm saying? And so the idea of giving them a book that's like, well, no, these people actually they're empowered because they have community at the very least. And I think this angle of approach is something that young people can latch on to and go, oh yeah, these sisters, they about it. They ain't taking it laying down. They're doing something,
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier in the book, I just said it, how the book is written, you use different vehicles to write your books, man. We Cast a Shadow was kind of a different thing you were doing. This book, without spoiling, the way the book is written, where a person kind of collecting data and things, and every once in a while in the book, they're reading certain things. And so tell us about why you chose that mode of operation for this book. Why you chose that style.
Yeah, I mean, I think stylistically, every writer has a style. I think part of my style is there's always a meta element to it. So We Cast a Shadow, spoiler for a 5-year-old book, but like there's a point where he's kind of talking to the reader a few times and talking to his son a few times, that kind of thing. Like he's talking out of the book to people in the world, so to speak.
Breaking that the fourth wall, right?
Breaking that fourth wall, And then in this book, it's like, I mean, I go through so many options as I'm writing a book. Like one of the things I considered doing was like Isabel Wilkerson with, Warmth of Other Suns and Cass, where like she's in the book sometimes. She's going around doing things in the book. Or like Honoré Jeffers, for example, she does the same thing, I think, in some of her books. And I considered like having like a character doing that in the book. And I was like, no, I don't really need that. But I do think it'd be interesting to have documents that sort of point to the real world. You can kind of go, oh, that first insert, which is that sort of slave document, that bill of sale, like, wait, is that real? But did those kinds really exist? Yes, they really existed. And this is very much like a real one.
Yes, and yes, man. Hey, the American daughters, go out and get this man's book. Before I let you leave, I got a question for you, my brother. I got a question for you. So now I see you mentioned it kind of early. Look at that. Oh. Not in your bag. Not in your bag. You mentioned it kind of in passing earlier. Your podcast. Your podcast. So now, instead of being a guest like you are now, you've done it 1,000 times, you're going to be on this side of the microphone. Tell us about the reason, like, why you decide, like, you know what? I'm going to do a podcast. Tell us the direction of it, where you want to go. What do you want the audience to gain? I heard the first episode. I loved it. It's great. And you do have a wonderful audio voice, by the way.
Thank you.
Tell about
I appreciate that. Well, for me, I said it earlier, and I really mean it. For me, when it comes to creativity, it's just I do what I enjoy doing. And so it started as a Substack newsletter where I would just talk about writing topics, about literature and craft and that sort of thing, about the world in general, even movies sometimes. And I sort of held back on the podcast part because even though I love podcasts, I don't want to like add like this me as a podcast. But then I realized that I had a sort of niche to fit in. And so what I've been doing is posting and sitting in silence about the writing process, about the craft of it, about the sort of spiritual feeling that writers have of like, am I ready? Can I be good enough? Those kinds of things. And the response has been phenomenal. I mean, I have not expected. There have been so many new subscribers. I've been getting like comments in my DMs, people like sending me notes and stuff like that. And if I could be a force for any light in the world, I'm going to do that. And so that's why I'm doing it. It's called Sitting in Silence. I put out, probably like 4 to 6 posts per month, including the newsletter parts of it. And there's also like special posts where I give out like craft documents that explain how to write certain things. And that's it.
No,
Yeah.
man. Because a lot of my audience that listen and watch, they are writers as well, or they're aspiring writers. So a large part of my show is going into the nooks and the crannies of the craft and the behind the scenes and the research. Like, I want you all to talk about that because people like myself, we feeding off of that, man. So your podcast is definitely important. Your Substack, and I will be over there binging for sure.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Well,
yes, sir, yes, sir.
I definitely want to tell everybody thank you for showing up tonight and people in the
Yeah,
future. I know with these things, it could be like 10 years from
yeah,
now. So everybody in the future, I hope you're doing very well out there. And Sean
yes,
P,
sir,
you're
yes,
one of the
sir.
greatest of all time. Thank you for what you do, bro.
Oh man, oh bro, thank you very very much for that. I'm appreciative. I received that. I grabbed with that, and I look forward to seeing you in person again on the 27th. My ticket already bought. I took off for work. I don't want to hear nothing. I'm on the highway to New Orleans, and I can't wait to dab you up, man, and grab a hold to you one more time, man. Thank you very much. You're so gracious. Thank y'all very much for the Sean P experience. Look out, February the 15th. I have Jonathan Ig on the show talking about King. MLK. You don't want to miss it. Sean P. Experience.